All right, so when we work with the athlete in the weight room setting or even on the field, we have to make sure they can have a neutral spine, move through their hips well, and then be able to load and propel from the ground. And so first one we'll go over is just the neutral spine. We don't want to be too much extension we're moving or too much flexion. So the way to teach that is just get into a cat camel position. Just have them get warmed up with a couple of reps. This is a camel and this is the cat position. So we're just teaching, flexion and extension. So just tell them, all right, pushing through camel, pull into cat, and then find a good neutral spot in the middle where you can have good core stability. So once they feel like this is the position they want to be in, we'll have them get out into a push-up, see if they can maintain that. And you can just let them know, okay, you're too much in extension here, so you have to lift those hips up, or maybe they're rounded out. So just a good neutral position. And then once they have a understanding of that, we're just going to teach to move through the hip, and we'll do a couple spine checks along the way. And so how we'll coach that is with the PVC pipe. And so the hip hinge, we're going to go shoes off. So for the hip hinge, I like to see the shoes off to see if they're really leaning back into their heel or too much on their forefoot or if they have nice balance. But we'll say here is, all right, I want you to keep your ankles, knees, and shoulders in alignment and just move back into your hip. So we should see is everything stay in alignment from the side. So for the spine cues, we want good contact points, back of the head, upper back, and lower back. And those three should stay in contact. And so if we lose contact points, that's too much flexion. It's obviously exaggerated, but they might look something like this. Or if they're the opposite as they go back, maybe they'll lose just one endpoint, or maybe they'll move through extension and lose that center back. And so what we want to coach is just see, what are they missing on? So we also want the knee to not flex forward but not get locked back. So we'll see a lot of athletes do something like this. We'll say, we just want to isolate the hips, or they might do something like this. And so good balance in the feet is going to help that. And we'll just rotate back and forth. So the key for me is I try not to overcoach the cues on this. Just tell them get 20 reps and try to load up the hamstring, squeeze through the glute, and not every single rep needs to be perfect, but once they feel the rep get better, it's like, okay, did you feel how your hamstring felt on that one? Try to get that feeling as you go back. And so what we're really trying to do is cue the feeling more than get too technical. All right, so we're here. You feel your hamstring loaded up? Yes, good. All right, so now we're going to drive forward to versus if they're moving like here, okay, where do you feel this? I feel it in my lower back. All right, let's come back up. I want you to keep your knee above your ankle. Just sit back into your hip. Drive up. And so once they understand the neutral spine and how to move through their hips, we'll just move into basic loading propulsion. And squat is the most basic version of that in the weight room setting. And so neutral spine, and get into our hips and pull yourself to the ground. And so we'll say is, you remember how you got into about 45 degrees hip hinge? All I want you to do is get maybe like 2 degrees, just shift into your hips mentally. So, all right, we have good spine posture, good core, and we're just going to get into our hips almost like a mental shift. Say, all right, now we're in an athletic position, and now we're going to pull ourselves to the ground. All right, so good core posture, good spine alignment. Just get into your hips almost mentally, shift into it, and pull yourself to the ground. Drive up. And, one thing to watch out for is, different athletes will have different mobility levels. So I'm not huge on getting max range of motion for every athlete. So if some athletes can get here in their squat and drive up, and that's comfortable for them, that's a good starting point. But if they're getting to this point and all right, you need to get to parallel, but when they get to parallel, that's when their back starts to round out. Then I'll just focus on the good range of motion, work on their mobility, work on the stability, maybe on the next session. But if somebody can get deeper in their squat, definitely will work on that as well.